Once upon a time, a scholar named Wu lived happily with his wife and with his daughter Ye Xian. Ye Xian was a beautiful girl and loved her mother and father dearly. But one day, tragedy struck when Ye Xian's mother had died of an illness. Years later, her father had remarried. He had remarried a woman named Zheng Li. Unlike Ye Xian's mother, Zheng Li was not kind. She was spoiled, lazy, and only cared about three things: money, herself, and her daughters. Not long after Wu got remarried to Zheng Li, he had died of the same illness that Ye Xian's mother had died of. So Ye Xian was forced to live with her wicked stepmother and her wicked daughters. They forced Ye Xian to clean for them and live life as a lowly servant. They mocked her and were cruel to her. Despite being treated this way, Ye Xian never stopped being kind to them. She found happiness in other things. One thing that she found brought her happiness was to find her own happy place where she could rest and hide from her stepsisters and stepmother. Every day, Ye Xian would sneak off to the lake next to her home. There she would hide fish food in her pouch to feed the fish of the lake. Her favorite fish was a beautiful 10-foot-long carp whose scales shimmered in the light. Every day while feeding the fish of the lake, she would vent her problems and frustrations to it. It was the only time she felt at peace. Little did Ye Xian know that the beautiful fish she came to visit every day was the spirit of her dear mother. The fish, with its golden scales and eyes, would watch over Ye Xian and made a silent promise that she would help Ye Xian find her own happiness. One day, while Ye Xian was sneaking off to the lake, Zheng Li, her stepmother, had seen her. While Ye Xian fed the fish and vented about her stepfamily's treatment of her, Zheng Li had become enraged. She could not stand to see Ye Xian happy, so she made a plan to end Ye Xian's happiness. When Ye Xian returned home, her mother donned a cape and cloak to hide her features and had stolen some of Ye Xian's fish food. When Ye Xian returned home, her stepmother donned a cape and cloak to hide her features and had stolen some of Ye Xian's fish food. She had mixed poison into the food and planned to poison the carp that Ye Xian loved so much. Zheng Li visited the lake at night, hidden her cloak, and called out to the fish in a voice as similar to Ye Xian as she could muster, and fed it the poisoned food. When she had fed it all of the poison, she fled the scene, disposed of her cloak, and smiled to herself as she imagined Ye Xian losing her precious fish. The next day, when Ye Xian went to go visit the fish, she saw it washed up on the shore. Ye Xian was devastated. She had lost the one last thing she had loved, and as she cried for the fish's passing, she heard a familiar-sounding voice. It was her mother's voice, the mother who she had loved with all of her heart. Ye Xian, do not cry. It is I, your mother. I had reincarnated into the fish that you fed every day. You must bury the fish's bones in pots at each corner of your bed. You see, I have been watching over you. If you do what I tell you and pray every day, I can return to help you, but only once at a time where you truly need my help. After that, I will have to leave again. Ye Xian understood and did exactly as she was told. Every day, her stepsisters and stepmother continued to mistreat her and force her to clean. Every day, Ye Xian had wanted to call her mom, but didn't want to waste the opportunity she had been given to by her mother, so she waited. Weeks went by, and while cleaning, she overheard her stepsisters discussing the upcoming spring festival. For many, the spring festival was a time of joy, happiness, and celebrations. Many of the village girls would meet their future partners there. The spring festival was a place for new beginnings to form, much like the season of spring itself. Ye Xian thought to herself that a chance for a new beginning could be her escape from her awful home. She could have a chance to find her own happiness. Her stepmother reminded Ye Xian that this festival was for her daughters to attend, not Ye Xian, and that she would ban Ye Xian from attending. Ye Xian would have to stay home to clean on the day of the festival. This made Ye Xian feel crushed, but she knew there was a solution to this problem. Later that night, when her stepmothers and stepmother left to get new clothes for the festival, Ye Xian rushed to the bones of the golden carp and asked her mother for help. Her mother's spirit had appeared to her once more and asked what it was that she wished for. Ye Xian made a wish that she could go to the festival. Her mother told her that she must dig up the bones that were buried in the pots beside her bed. Doing as she was told, Ye Xian found beautiful clothes within each pot in place of the bones, including a cloak of kingfisher feathers, jewelry, and a pair of shoes which were woven with golden threads and a pattern of a scaled fish. When she walked in them, she felt lighter than air. Ye Xian thanked her mother before she disappeared and had hidden her festival clothing. On the day of the festival, Ye Xian waited for her stepmother and stepsister to leave, pretending to be cleaning. Once they left, she changed into her festival clothes. They had an unusual shine and shimmer to them, almost like a princess's clothes. Making sure not to be spotted, Ye Xian snuck off to the festival in her beautiful, brand new festival clothing. Once there, all eyes were on Ye Xian. Everyone wondered who this beautiful girl was and couldn't recall seeing her before. Ye Xian did not worry about all the eyes on her and enjoyed the festival. She danced for hours with many different people and enjoyed all of the festivities. However, Ye Xian was not the only one in disguise at the festival. So was the prince. He had disguised himself as a commoner. When he had danced with Ye Xian, he was astounded by her beauty and kindness and quickly fell in love with her. He wished for a chance to dance with her again, but before he knew it, she was gone. Ye Xian, while dancing, had seen the eyes of her stepmother and fled the festival in fear of being recognized. She was in such a hurry that she did not realize she had left her shoe behind. Ye Xian was terrified of what would happen if her stepmother knew she had attended the festival without permission and quickly changed back into her rags, hidden the gorgeous festival clothing, and resumed cleaning. The prince, looking for Ye Xian in hopes of another dance, had only found her shoe. He held onto it in case they were to meet again, but alas, as the festival continued, there was no sign of Ye Xian. The next day, there was news that the prince was starting a search for a beautiful girl who wore shoes embroidered with golden threads. All the women in the village were to try on the shoe, and the prince would meet with whoever they fit to determine if it truly was the woman he danced with on the night of the festival. From hut to hut, from house to house went the prince. One young woman after another tried to fit her foot inside the embroidered shoe, but none could fit, and so the prince moved on. Eventually the shoe ended up at Ye Xian's house, and her eyes widened to see her shoe. She hadn't even realized she lost it. Here it was. The prince's men asked to have all the women in the house try it on. First went the stepmother, but her feet were far too big. Then went the stepsister, their feet far too wide. Next was Ye Xian's turn. Before she could even attempt to try on the shoe, her stepmother interfered, arguing that there was no reason for her to try on the shoes, as she was just a lowly servant. There's no way they would fit Ye Xian, as she wasn't at the festival. She was at home cleaning. The prince's men paid no attention to the stepmother and asked Ye Xian to try it anyway, as that was the prince's orders. To everyone but Ye Xian's surprise, the golden carp shoes had fit her perfectly. Once again, the stepmother tried to convince the prince's men that there was no way Ye Xian was the woman that the prince was looking for, but was ignored once again. The prince's men asked if Ye Xian would feel comfortable being escorted to the palace. Ye Xian agreed, but asked if she could grab something from her room first. She had went into her room and grabbed her festival clothing, which were hidden, and brought them with her. Once again, she put them on, as well as her shoes, and gave a kind goodbye to her wicked stepfamily. Ye Xian left with the prince's men, thanking them for their generosity. Once they arrived at the palace, the prince met with Ye Xian. After a brief discussion, the prince realized that was the woman he fell in love with on the night of the festival. Ye Xian also confided to him during their meeting how she'd been living as a servant to her stepfamily and the cruel treatment she was given as their servant. This angered the prince. How could her wicked stepfamily be so cruel to someone as kind and as intelligent as Ye Xian? And so to punish the stepfamily for their cruelty to her, the prince banished them from their village and never allowed them to visit Ye Xian. The prince then asked Ye Xian if she would move into the palace, where she could never be hurt again. Ye Xian agreed, happy to be far from the home that reminded her of all the sadness and pain she had endured there. From now on, Ye Xian was able to start her life new. She was granted a new beginning and became known as the kindest, most intelligent woman within the palace. Many loved her for her kind heart, as did the prince. She eventually fell in love with the prince and they married. Ye Xian was able to live happily for the rest of her life, thanks to the help of her mother's spirit. She never had to clean again and was able to live the way she wanted. There was no one to tell her what to do, and she was free to be herself. The freedom from her stepfamily truly was one of the greatest blessings she had ever received. After that, Ye Xian lived happily ever after. Hey everyone, Miss Cassandra here. I hope you liked this week's story. Did it sound familiar to you? If it did, you were probably reminded of the story of Cinderella. That's because this story is commonly known as the Chinese Cinderella. The tale of Ye Xian is an ancient Chinese story that was written over 1,000 years ago in the year 850. It is the oldest known version of the story of Cinderella and is considered to be the original Cinderella story. Some believe that Cinderella wouldn't exist without this story. The original tale of Ye Xian is quite different from the version I told, as I made changes to make it a happier, more appropriate story. The original can be found quite easily by searching for it. I chose to tell the story because in the West, many of us know the tale of Cinderella. I wanted to share the origins of one of the most famous fairy tales of all time. It is a sad tale, much like Cinderella, but there is a happy ending there. Anyhow, I can't wait to see you next week. Next week, I'll be doing a tale from Russia. See you then!